This is Tim.
I'm Mulele.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim with Mulele in Tokyo. I've got a bit of a cold. Mulele, I hope you're doing a little better.
I feel like maybe I'm coming down with something soon, which would be like my first cold since coming back from Canada, I guess. I don't know. It's not that long. Maybe I'm just sickly.
Yeah, because I haven't had one in a while. It's been like raining almost every day here for weeks on end. One typhoon after another goes by.
Yeah.
And it's kind of chilly.
Yeah, it's suddenly cold. It's like no fall. It's just like, boom, suddenly heavy snow.
Oh, well, we had one sunny day today that was nice. I think this was our fall.
Yeah, that was it.
And now it's supposed to rain all weekend. Anyway, so we have a couple comics to talk about again. The first one is called The World of Tomorrow, issue number 1, written and edited by, would that be Giles? It's a hard or soft G. I think maybe Giles Clarke. Sorry if I got it wrong. Pencils and inks by Kenan Halilovic, colorist Felipe Obando, letterer Deron Bennett. Okay, well, before I get to anything else, I realized as I was searching the web to see if I could find some presence for this comic on the web, I was reminded that there are many other properties with the same title. There's a movie, there's been a magazine, a book, another comic that all had this title or similar titles. So I don't know, they might want to consider a different title, so just to prevent confusion.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a difficult point of branding in that the reason for the title is because it's based off of a 1950s sci-fi TV show. But I mean, it's just one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, yeah, I can see this kind of show from the 50s. World of Tomorrow, of course, it's a thing. The name is so tropey. But I mean, I can see why they named it this, but at the same time, naming the comic the same as the TV show, yeah, you're right. There's a bit of a branding issue.
Yeah, I have another problem with the title, too, that I'll get to. But the opening of this comic got me with an age-old trick. Because I was reading those first few pages, and I was saying, is this a parody of Star Trek, or is this a shameless ripoff of Star Trek? And then after 5 pages, it turned out we're watching the filming of a TV show. And like, oh, gee, they got me.
I don't know how they got you. And the entire thing is in sepia tones. And they've all got those like cathode ray tube, like rounded edges for the old TVs. I mean, the entire time I was looking at this like, okay, this is the TV show. And
yeah, I don't know. I just totally was caught off guard. So they're making a TV show called The World of Tomorrow. And the captain is played by an actor named Craig Barstow. Now, something about these first few pages, we get a lot of comments about Barstow being a drunk. And he's been drinking too much and it's causing various problems and blah, blah, blah. But it was pages and pages until I saw any evidence that he was a drunk. Finally, like about page 11, we see him take a swig from a flask. But before that, it's just entirely on what other people are saying about him. But the way he's acting, I didn't really get an obvious clue that he was drunk or a heavy drinker or an alcoholic or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Actually, now that you mention it, I do have a similar kind of thing. Well, I mean, even in the TV show segment, when he comes on screen, he's kind of scruffy.
Mm-hmm.
He's not clean shaven.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are kind of mistakes in the TV show. Like he gets hit by one of the other actors by accident.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then there's a really awfully subtle thing that I didn't even catch the first time, where during the filming of the show, he mentions a sponsor who, several pages later, we find out that sponsor has abandoned the show because of his drinking.
Yeah, actually, I quite like that bit. I noticed the sponsor, then I noticed that it's like, oh man, isn't that a problem for the script? But still, about the drinking part, I would say that, yeah, they talk about it before he takes his first swig. They kind of point to him being rough around the edges, but he's everybody seems to know everything except him. And so they're talking about him, they're talking about the show. People are kind of patting him on the back for a show well done, and that it's kind of finished and he doesn't know it's finished yet. All this stuff kind of seemed okay. I didn't really feel that him not taking swigs immediately after they yelled cut was a problem. Him taking swigs for courage is a little bit more. I mean, everybody says that he's a drunk, and then we find out, well, yeah, he has some problems. He's not necessarily a drunk, but he is a gambler who's in debt to the mob, or to at least a loan shark, and that he kind of is a loser. Mm-hmm. He's a small L loser, and it's about to become a big L if he doesn't do something to fix himself.
Mm-hmm.
But just kind of looking the way they set up what his life revolves around the show, then they introduce very quickly all of his problems. He's a drunk. He's about to lose his show. He's got no money because his ex-wife took it all. And he's basically a nice guy at heart, but he's not too bright. Like, all of these things are in very quick succession laid out, and I thought they did that very, very well. And I actually quite liked the dialogue for a lot of this stuff. It felt kind of smooth and it flowed, which I usually don't feel because, I'm more of a guy who looks at the artwork and tends to gloss over the dialogue. But here I was caught up by the dialogue. In fact, found myself liking the book because of the dialogue more than the art, which is very rare for me.
Yeah. There were some things that sort of bothered me about the story logically.
Okay.
So after they shoot that scene, he's talking with the guy who accidentally punched him, who somehow his name is
Johnny
Redshirt. Yes. Now, somehow, even this extra knows that the show is about to be canceled, and Craig doesn't. And I just didn't see how that could be possible. And I don't understand why everybody's trying to keep it from him. You mean you'd think that they would tell him as soon as he came to work?
Yeah, it kind of seems like a setup for something that doesn't quite pay off later. I mean, I think the idea is that he realizes then and there that he's going to be fired, so he goes to the president of the company, and the president of the company is like, this guy. But I can see where it doesn't quite jibe with the scene in the beginning, where even the extra knows that the show's over.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't bug me so much, although it kind of seems that there should be a little bit more to it if everybody knows and he doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, before I get to this next thing, did you catch when this is set?
No. I just assumed it was maybe late 50s.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there are some clues to that. Actually, on their Kickstarter page, it does say that it's set in the 50s, but I was sort of confused about it. I guess partly because that the World of Tomorrow TV show seems to owe a lot to Star Trek, which of course is 60s.
Yeah.
And some of the like clothes and stuff looked a little too modern to me to be 50s. But I mean, the shot of cars in a parking lot later in the issue, they almost look like 1940s cars. So I was a little confused about the setting here.
Well, it is a little bit more of a pastiche of eras, but yeah, the Johnny Redshirt joke doesn't quite land if it takes place pre Star Trek, because I think that's where that was kind of developed out of that show, or at least I thought it did. Maybe
sure, red shirt.
Maybe the writer is onto something that we don't know, but I mean, I don't know any other place it could have come from, because that's the only place it seems to have originated from everyone I've talked to.
Sure, yeah, the joke about how the crewman with the red shirt is always the guy who gets killed on the planet's surface.
Yeah.
So Johnny Redshirt also says something that I think the sentence isn't phrased quite right, and it really confused me for a couple of reasons. So yeah, he says, it's okay, Mr. Barstow, about that Barstow. Okay, well, I should back up. So Johnny gets fired because he knocked over part of the set, and Barstow tries to get him his job back and isn't effective at doing so. So Johnny says, it's okay, Mr. Barstow. I'm just glad that I got to be on the show while it was still on the air. So that's his first clue that it's getting canceled.
Yeah.
And then Johnny says, still, I'm going to miss not being on Pony Express. Now, that's confusing for several reasons. One, he doesn't mean miss not being on it. He means he's going to miss being on it. Because if you miss not being on it, you're like, oh, it was better when I wasn't on it, and now I'm on it, and I don't like being on the show. Yeah. So that not doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
We've never heard of Pony Express up to this point, so that kind of catches me off guard, and I'm a little confused. And then later we find out that Pony Express is the replacement for this show, so it hasn't even been on yet. I don't know if it's even been shot. So has Johnny even had a chance to appear on Pony Express?
Well, I think maybe he was maybe cast, maybe put on a contract to be on a couple of shows, maybe a couple of appearances. I'm not sure how contracts worked in the 1950s, but I think the point was that this was the introduction. He let slip that there's another show called Pony Express, which is going to replace this show. That's where you get the hint that there's a competing show. Mm-hmm. And it kind of adds to the idea of everything's already in motion, and yeah, this is the end. And then when he gets to the boss's office, who he's supposed to like, hey, I helped build this company, take care of me. The boss is like, no, this is the show that's going to replace you. We've even got parts for all of the staff that were working on the show that you were a star of. You're the only one who's not coming back. And so it's just that much more of a blow. Mm-hmm. But see, the thing is, in this comic, we're looking at this character fall very hard, very quickly. And so it just starts with him getting punched during a scene.
Right. Well, he gets locked out of his dressing room. He has to go home in his costume. He barges onto a bus even though he doesn't have any money. Somebody does pay for him. A security guy recognizes him.
Yep.
And he has a hidden key outside his house. And he goes in his house, and for some reason he doesn't change out of his costume. He's just lounging around his house in his costume. I don't know if we're supposed to think that he's because he got drunk or what? It's not very clear.
Could be that he got drunk. It could be that he's just now kind of like, oh, fuck, what do I do about this situation? Let me just think about it for a moment while I have this drink or whatever. And he just kind of collapses in on himself. It kind of looks like he's more depressed than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But things kind of start to escalate again. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, it goes total bonfires of the vanities.
Yeah, if he's kind of having a moment of, let me just deal with this, and I can kind of see him doing that. It's not really overtly stated in the comic that that's what he's going through. He just seems to kind of sit down on his chair on his recliner, and then a few hours later he kind of gets up, gets in a fight, and then wanders into a bar.
Right. So yeah, his neighbors are having a domestic violence incident. The husband is, I think he's a drunk too, and he's threatening his wife, and Johnny goes out and ends up getting punched for his trouble, and then he wanders downtown still in his costume into a bar, and then the loan shark you mentioned, very very stereotypical looking loan shark with a big enforcer guy in suspenders. Mm-hmm. And they end up throwing him into traffic, and he gets hit by a couple cars, and then the PDF ends there, and I'm not sure if that was meant to be the last page of the issue or if we're missing something, but that's the last we get here.
Well, it is quite the first act. And I found myself, when it comes to that abrupt ending in the PDF, like, what the fuck, man? Where's my more? Where's my 10 pages of useless fan art that that the book commissioned because they don't have any fans yet? But I felt that it was pretty well scripted, well drawn, well lettered. There are a couple of mistakes here and there, a couple of typos, but for the most part, I found it thoroughly enjoyable and well done. I would say that the colors on the cover could be a little bit brighter. They seem kind of dull, and maybe they're trying to ape the idea of an old magazine with its with faded colors, but it just looks like the colors are off. But I actually quite enjoyed this and would like to see number 2, because I kind of like this loser. And I want to see how far he goes before his life begins to turn upward.
Now, something I saw on the Kickstarter page shocked me.
Oh.
It referred to this book as, and I quote, a fun-filled comedy. And the only thing about this book that I laughed at was that phrase, because I didn't... they're billing it as a comedy, because it didn't strike me as that at all, especially anything after the opening scene where they're shooting the TV show. I couldn't even find anything that was intended to be funny.
Sorry, you're saying that the only thing that made you laugh was the fact that they called it a comedy?
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, I laughed out loud for a few seconds at that, because it just seemed so off from my impression of what the book was trying to do.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more of a dry comedy, a dry wit, where we're watching this guy kind of lose. And we'll see how far he goes down before he comes up again. I mean, but this first bit introduced so many problems and such a clear trajectory from where he was, from who he thinks he is, to who he actually is. And he's now at a point where, fuck, he's got to do something about it. Otherwise, he is done. And even though at the end of the comic, the two thugs who throw him into traffic kind of wonder if he's done or think that he's done, clearly this is the beginning of something. So I would say he's not done. He's just going to take a little extra time to heal first before he gets to the next part.
The other thing that sort of bothered me about the title was I felt like, at least from the first issue, I didn't really feel like this comic was about the TV show The World of Tomorrow. So the title felt like kind of misdirection to me. I mean, I don't know where we're going from here, but the first issue was much less about the show, I thought, than it was about Craig.
Yeah, that part is true. The show, if the show is already canceled at the beginning of the thing, it kind of feels a little bit weird to name the actual comic the World of Tomorrow. But who knows? Maybe that'll come back around in another way.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think that surely they must somehow get it uncanceled, but it seems kind of hopeless in this first issue.
Yeah, if the name of the book was World of Tomorrow and then the name of the TV show was Space Cadet, it would have a little bit more of an impact as a message towards his life rather than a message towards the TV show. But having the TV show and the book be the same title is a bit confusing in that sense. So yeah, I kind of agree with you there.
We shouldn't leave out the art here because the art is quite accomplished, I thought.
Oh, definitely, yeah. You said you had some problems with some of the costuming and...
Well, I just didn't understand why he didn't change out of his costume when he had the chance. But, I mean, I didn't have any complaints about the art, really.
Yeah, the TV show I felt was very well done. It had a very nice 1950s thing, and the round edges to the panels were a little overblown, but still, it got the point across, and I quite liked it. I felt like I was watching a TV show. The sepia tones for the coloring were all really, really good, and I like that too. Maybe the one panel that kind of, or the two panels that kind of confused me at first, when the main guy,
Craig,
comes out of the space brig, and then there's another panel next to it where he's delivering his lines, but his posture is broken. So he comes out and strikes a hero's pose, and then kind of the hero's pose melts away, and he just kind of says his lines. And I'm kind of now in retrospect looking at it like, oh, okay, he's fucking up his lines. He can't act because typically.
Something to do with his drinking too. I mean, I think maybe it was a little subtle, but I think that's what they were trying to do there.
Yeah, that one is a little too subtle. I kind of miss it. Just like, what is this extra panel? Was kind of my feeling, but now coming back to it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is where he's fucking up his lines, and he looks like a drunk on screen.
Yeah, but I think they need to hit us over the head with it a lot harder.
Yeah, maybe have his hip flask fall out of his back pocket.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Just checking the other panels to make sure they didn't actually draw that and we missed it. But now it seems that they didn't. But anyway, yeah, I can. I see a lot of stuff that was really, really well done, and there may be a few points where it's like, wait a minute, that's not from the 1950s, or wait a minute, that looks a little too modern. Maybe a couple of things here and there, but I'm at the point where I can still kind of suspend disbelief. I mean, the red shirt thing is a little bit off, but I'm just like, okay, a little bit weak on the writer's research, but. The rest of it, I'm kind of good, even though the producer of the show looks like he's got a 70s haircut, 50s haircut. He's got kind of that J. Jonah Jameson with a kind of shag in the back. And I don't think that was a thing in the 50s. I think it was like tight and neat in the back, but the front the same. Yeah, but anyway. Aside from stuff like that, I'm still kind of there because I can kind of see what they're going for. Do I believe it's the 50s? Well, believe it's the 50s the same way I believe that Samuel L. Jackson can play a piano in Kill Bill Volume 1. He was in it for just a cameo, but he was there playing piano. It's like, okay, whatever. and that's it.
All right, our second comic, Possession #1, written by Michael Norwitz. Now, I didn't realize it at first, but he was the same guy who wrote Turtle Girl, which was on the Irrational Comics pitch page last year. Do you remember Turtle Girl?
No. Maybe if I saw the art or heard the pitch one more time, I'd
yeah. If you saw the art, you would remember it.
Okay.
We talked about it in a episode like spring 2017.
That so many years ago, man. I can probably remember.
A year and a half. Art by Enrico Carnevale, colors by Andrea Blanco, letters by HDE. Now, I found this comic a real head scratcher.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was going a lot of different directions, and I was having trouble kind of figuring out what it was trying to be about. So we start out at this newsstand in a city, and just kind of normal everyday stuff is going on.
Mm.
And then the next thing we see is there's this Greek myth stuff about Aphrodite and her extramarital affair with Ares. And they graphically get it on right there on the page.
Mm.
And she does it with other guys too, just because she's that kind of girl.
Yeah.
And then we're in an office, lots of cubicles, and there's this overweight, shy woman named Cora, who we also saw in the newsstand scene. And in both of those scenes, she's talking about the photos that she takes of cats.
Mm-hmm.
So by this time, we're like 8-9 pages into the story. And we know it's about taking pictures of cats and something to do with Greek myth.
And that no one likes Cora.
Right, yeah. Everybody's kind of like, oh, gee, Cora. But finally on page 10, we find out, oh, there's some skullduggery going on in this office.
Yeah.
There's some kind of scandal brewing. Then we just kind of get a taste of that, and then we've got 3 pages in some kind of a punk bar, and those are just silent. There's no dialogue, or almost none. Just maybe the person on stage yelling out things. After I'd been through the book several times, I realized that there was a guy from the newsstand scene who was also in the bar.
Right.
The guy named Zeke, who also is into cats. But I didn't really follow what was happening in that bar scene. Did you?
This woman kind of saved him from getting his ass whipped by some punks.
Was that a woman?
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell, but I thought I saw breasticles. Sorry, that's just wrong.
Yeah, I guess so. But the face looked masculine to me, but
yeah, kind of. But there are some panels where it looks like she has breasts. So I assume that was supposed to be. Well, none of the women here really have large breasts. It's not that kind of comic, it seems. But yeah, she saves him from that and takes him outside.
Yeah, and somebody's giving him a hard time, I guess. But
yeah, and then she has her own bit of panic in the last panel.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not real clear.
No.
Which I should say are 3 words that are repeated many times while reading this comic.
Yes. So the woman in the office said that she's been having an affair with this guy whose wife is in trouble with the law, and another guy from the office goes to talk to him, but the guy doesn't want to talk with him about it. He just kicks him out. And this guy from the office is then talking to the wife, and he knows some secret about her. Then we're with Cora again, and her cat photos, and some guy that she has a crush on comes along, and we're treated to a scene, a shot of her touching herself, which apparently she does while thinking of him at various points. She's remembering that, apparently. But then we're on to another scene, and it's the woman who's having the affair with the guy, and some ghost or something has appeared in her office. And it just kind of keeps building up like that with new plot elements coming in. Oh, and then the woman who saved the guy in the bar is now saving somebody else who's getting beat up. And then we got one more panel of Aphrodite and Ares and their punishment for screwing around together. And I mean, I'm sure that the Greek myth part is supposed to be some kind of analogy to something that's happening in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing you think of is if, she's having an adulterous affair and somebody in the comic is having an adulterous affair, you would think that that's the connection.
Yeah.
But for one thing, the people who are having the adulterous affair in the present are never seen together in this issue.
Mm.
And that affair is just like one small piece of all the various stuff that happens in this issue. And I was really having a hard time figuring out what the Greek myth part was really doing here.
Mm. I found the Greek myth part to be really frustrating to read because the font is really, really small.
Mm-hmm.
It's much smaller than the rest of the comic, which is also a little bit small, I felt. Maybe I'm wrong, but still, I found it kind of frustrating to read. But I should say, after that little page of the, or that little panel of the Greek part,
mm-hmm.
the story kind of continues with the security guy trying to figure out what's going on with this missing file, blah. And he runs into what looked like two orcs in business suits, and then gets his ass handed to him. And then that woman from the punk club shows up and is trying to like, hey, you don't have to do that. What the fuck are you monsters doing? And it's like, okay, so in this, are we drawing parallels between this Greek story and this modern situation? Maybe, but it's kind of weak at best. And then after that, are we kind of setting up all these different characters, especially this 1, 2, 3 page thing with the newsstand at the beginning to be some sort of central point, or did we just spend 3 pages to introduce one woman who likes cats?
That's what it felt like, the latter. Yeah, I mean, I had this weird take on the comic where it was simultaneously trying to fit too much into one issue and taking way too long to get started.
Well, but see, here's the thing. First, it's about the newsstand, then it's about Cora, then it's about cats, then it's about
Greek myth. Don't forget that.
What's that?
Greek myth.
Yeah, then it's about Greek myth. Then it's about industrial espionage. Then it's about an affair. Then it's about punks. Then it's about it's actually about some sort of ghost or kind of technological thing that lets you see ghost figures in your office. Oh no, wait a minute, it's about orcs. And so it's like, what the fuck do you want to say? Where are we going with this?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to introduce all this shit and you've got extra pages that you're going to show later, you can do that later. So one of the things about Game of Thrones, there's a lot of magic and a lot of dragons and that shit, but none of that shit happens in the first issue. The first season. It all starts to build up magic and dragons and whatnot from season 2. Season 1 is fairly grounded in reality.
Okay.
And I feel that you could have in this issue set up the parallels between the Greek myth and the affair, introduced the espionage aspect, and just left it there.
Yeah.
Issue 2, you can start to bring in the punks and maybe a little bit more into the affair bit. And then issue 3 or so, you start to talk about the ghost. Actually, the ghost bit, maybe issue 4 or 5, because you need more time for each individual topic to breathe, so you can get a sense of the world without it changing every 3 pages. Because when you start to do that shit, you're just throwing everything in for the fuck of it, and there's no point to this. In fact, we don't even know what this ghost thing is supposed to be, or why it's there. There's no reason why this couldn't have been another person just walking into her office saying, "Hey, what are you working on?" And then
it doesn't have to be a ghost.
Right. There seems to be no point there, and it only lasts for about 2 pages. 2 pages for the scene, 1 page for the ghost, and we're just left with questions. And not questions like, I wonder who did it. Questions like, what the fuck is that? And that's really not where you want to be with your comic. You want the reader to have an idea of what they're looking at, and you can turn it on its ear later, but there shouldn't be kind of like, why? Because I found myself just kind of like, am I stupid? Why am I not getting this? What the fuck is this? I know I'm not, deep into Greek myth, but I can understand, like, Aphrodite and that shit. I can understand the dynamics of what's going on in the story of the Greek myth and how it parallels with some of the ideas in the rest of the comic, but what is all this other shit? And where are we going? What? And then it suddenly ends. And mind you, this comic is 23 pages long for all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. But you've got at least 4 or 5 different running devices here that are never explained and never make a second appearance in the comic. The only one that does is maybe the Greek thing, or the only couple that do are the Greek thing, the affair stuff, and the girl at the punk club shows up again.
Yeah, and Cora and the cat stuff, we get
Cora and the cat. Well, Cora and the cat stuff at first, and then Cora and the cat stuff second, and then Cora the masturbator third. It's like,
yes.
Okay, but there's not enough time for me to care about any of these characters or the things that they're doing, or to even understand what some of this shit is. And so I would say, in the writing, it's kind of a waste of time. The comic is, it's kind of like someone walking up to you and talking to you so excitedly they throw up on you. And then they walk away. It's like, what the fuck just happened? And why?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But also, I felt like the first 10 pages should have gotten more into, something to really draw us in. Because Cora taking pictures of cats didn't draw me in. And the Greek myth stuff, I felt like there was no reason for it there. I think it would have been more effective if we had really kind of established better what it was supposed to be an analogy for first, and then get to it, and people would say, "Oh, this is an analogy for that." If we need it at all.
To be honest, the real beginning of the comic is page 10.
Yep.
Cut all the other shit out, start at page 10, and then you start to kind of you see a point of entry. Mm-hmm. You're instantly on the intrigue of this company. She sets up the affair and the need to keep that quiet, plus the weird shit that's going on that may lead to industrial espionage.
Yeah, that should have been the first scene.
Yeah, that's actually a real good scene there. Mm-hmm. And I was convinced of her need to keep it quiet. The interaction is drawn well. The scene works. Mm-hmm. But the rest of it is just like, I just don't understand what this is. And I don't understand why. Why it was necessary to show this.
Yeah.
Because even the stuff after the Punk Club kind of makes sense. She talks to the other person in the affair, and there's a lot of weird shit going on. And then it just seems kind of, out of nowhere, Javier talks to Astrid about her past. And I didn't understand who this person was, how they knew each other, and why he could suddenly hey, he doesn't know that you're married in another country. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this plot line? Did I miss something?
Well, that didn't bother me. I kind of liked having that little bit of extra intrigue, but I think this issue should have focused a little more on this story and filled us in a little bit more on these characters, and leave aside Cora and the Greek myth and the Punk Club and
the orcs and the ghost.
Yeah, and the ghost, definitely the ghost, and just get us rolling on this plot line first, because I feel like this is the main thing that's going on here, and I really wanted a little more of this.
Yeah, and actually what would have been really interesting is just to take the Greek myth as a structure and just lay your story over the top of it. People who get it will get it. Mm-hmm. People who don't need the Greek myth stuff. And to put it side by side in your comic to show like a parallel to something that's not really clear, it's just going to fuck you up.
Especially we've got 5 different storylines, so which one is it a parallel to?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say, and I really hate to say it this way because of a lot of the hard work that the artists have put in.
Mm-hmm.
Stop, rewrite your script, start again.
Yeah.
If you do issue 2, you're digging yourself into a deeper hole. This really needs a professional editor to come in and say, what are all these other ideas? What is your main story? Focus on these things. Okay, now you got an issue. It seems it seems kind of like a kitchen sink thing that doesn't quite understand that it's just hurting itself. It's weighing itself down with that.
Yeah. Yeah, they do have a script editor known as Mad Mall Green, but yeah.
Oh, fuck out of that guy. He's got to go. Sorry, because it feels like no editor looked at this.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just fix the typos. I don't know.
Well, it's not just fix the typos. The typos are one thing. But this has major structural problems,
mm-hmm.
and I rarely say stop and redo it, but this is one where it's definitely needed, because if you go publish this mess and then expect people to come back for issue 2, they're coming back only for the art, and the art has to grab them really fucking hard, so it really diminishes your chances of people coming back, because you know what they say. You buy issue 1 for the art and you buy issue 2 for the story.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of done right here. So this script editor does not know that the story is so bogged down and has so many problems.
Mm-hmm.
Or the script editor told the writer that it has problems, and the writer ignored that.
I can imagine that happening too in some situations, sure.
Yeah. So whatever the case is, the editor is not being used to the benefit of the story. So either find an editor who has more strength and can actually tell the writer to change a few things, or change the writer because the writer is not doing a solid enough job to kind of get the story to where it needs to go.
Yeah.
Like in the last story, it really the writer really understood the structure, even if he missed a few points. He really understood the structure of what he was doing, and he wanted this character to be the main driving force of the story, and that's very clear. Here it's not so clear. And also wanted the main character to be at point B by the end, and there is a point of no return that the character hits at the end of that book, where the character, the loan shark has had enough and throws him into oncoming traffic, and he gets hit by two cars. We're not sure if he's alive or dead. Probably he's alive because, if Indiana Jones had died in the first 10 minutes of the story, looking at a lot
of a movie
for the rest of the 90 minutes. But so it's very clear that, okay, this has gone too far. There's no going back to that old life. Everything is just simply turned against him. Now he needs to crawl his way back. And that's the story that we're going to see in issue 2. Here, there's no point of no return for any of the characters here.
Hmm.
None of them is compelled to do anything. The one who gets closest to that is the guy investigating the industrial espionage. But basically, he comes to a point where he's kind of looking at this stuff, and he's trying to be discreet for his friend, but he just got his ass kicked by 2 orcs. At that point, if I'm him, I'm going, going to take this to HR. I'm out. Because, I'm fine for helping out a friend, but I'm not going to get my ass kicked by orcs for a friend. That's something different. So, in this, there's no, okay, how is my character going to solve this problem that must be solved? Because there's no must be solved problem, but lots of danger. So yeah, the script doesn't work. So the relationship between the editor and the script the editor and the script writer doesn't work. So no, not this way. Edit that script one more time, fix all of these problems, and then go back to your artists, pray that they don't leave you, offer them more money on top of what you've already paid them, and do it again.
Yeah, the art is good. I'm wondering what you think of the coloring. I mean, the coloring is good in that, the colorist really knows how to kind of unify a page with a certain palette, and, different scene, different page, different palette. Yep. Some of the colors are a little bright, I thought. I didn't think bright as much as there are a lot of too many gradients. Okay.
Everything is a gradient, a smooth transition from color A to color B, and every surface, every background, every person has gradients on them. And I think that maybe for this artist, not gradients as much as textures would have been a little bit better, because it's just a little bit too smooth on everything. It's supposed to be a city, right? And so even the back alleys look a little shiny. And so I would say that for the colors, that's kind of it. I mean, I think the textures would have really broken up some of the stuff. In the Greek myth part, it's appropriate. The coloring is actually very fine, works very well. And the fact that there are gradients does not bother me. I don't know, the 3P of the gods kind of bugged me. It was kind of unexpected. But the colors themselves, fine. But like even in was it page 7 with the office? All of the office windows are done in kind of this airbrush / gradient kind of thing, and it just seems a little bit too smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also desaturate the glass a little bit because it's kind of a bright blue. But yeah, I didn't feel that the colorist did a bad job. I just felt that a lot of the stuff was a little bit too smooth. It kind of plays better in some areas more than others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, basically, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's the job.
Okay.
Yeah, and by far, I've got many more complaints about the script and the editing than I do about any other aspect of this book.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we have some mail, which I apologize. I had it last time and I completely forgot about it. This is from Ken Holzhauser. We critiqued The Quick and the Dad back in episode 139.
I remember it.
He says, "Thanks, guys. Excellent discussion. You hit on the criticisms I have and recognize the evolution of the process. To answer a couple questions, I started The Quick and the Dad last year. The first issue was produced in tiny spurts through the year and was published in December 2017. The next 8 issues have followed over these 8 months of 2018, and each issue teaches me something that makes the next issue better. There's an effect in issues 7 through 9 that is a result of experimentation, and I strive to improve the writing and cartooning with every issue. At its heart, it's a love letter to the comics I grew up with, and I'm always happy to share it with others. P.S. I have a couple of future covers in the pipeline from classic Marvel DC artists. Makes me feel like I'm part of the community, you know? Yeah, cool.
Well, to be honest, yeah, that does make you a part of the community. Basically, you're a publisher, though. And that's the way publishers work. They find an artist they like, they hire them to draw something, and that's it.
Yeah.
As far as doing the cartooning thing, yeah, again, that's you. You are a part of the community. And the only difference I would say between you and, say, Arthur Adams is that he makes a little bit more money. That's about it. At least that's what I like to think about myself. Arthur Adams is a little bit more famous than I am, just a little. But yeah, you're absolutely a part of the community.
Yeah.
And I have to say, hearing the title of the book again, I can think on it kind of warmly. It's not one of those things where you kind of look back and, oh yeah, that book. Oh yeah, we reviewed it. It was all right. No, it's like, oh, that was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember that, reading it and having a good time with it. So yeah, keep working.
Yeah. Okay, so as for our social media, I'm at Decon Comics on Twitter. I'm running the Deconstructing Comics group and page on Facebook. And what are you actively using on social media?
Okay, actively I'm using Instagram and Twitter, both at Mulele Redux, Mulele EDUX. And that's it.
Okay. And if you'd like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read at least 30 pages of it and talk about it on the show. I should mention next week on Deconstructing Comics, I'm interviewing Michael Kupperman. He's the guy who did, have you ever seen Tales Designed to Thrizzle?
No.
Yeah, it's a really funny series that was coming out a while back. He did 8 issues of it, 2 trades, and then he's moved on to something else. And he's just a few months ago put out a book called All the Answers, which is about, at least partially about how his dad was one of the quiz kids on radio and then on television back in the 40s and 50s, and his fame as a child sort of haunted him all his life. It's a really interesting book. So I talked to Michael about it, and then also I review it with Kumar. So.
Okay. Well, the titles actually sound kind of intriguing.
Yeah. Mulele and I will be back in 2 weeks. So till then, this is Tim.
And Mulele.
And thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.